Hello, this is Art in the Digital World. I'm your host, Towne, and this show is about interviewing artists who have various skills. Maybe some of them use computers, maybe some use computers just a little bit. And today we have a great guest who does digital means in both ways. And so we have Chris Bernasconi. Right. How are you today?
Fine, thanks.
Good. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your photography maybe, or how you got into photography?
Well, originally I'm from Laguna Beach, California, and I was mostly an artist crafts person down there for the 14 years that I lived there. I was in the Sawdust Festival, and I was in the Festival of the Arts, Pageant of the Masters, as well for a couple of years. And I've done a variety of media, including macrame and weavings, and I just love color and I love patterns, and moved up to Arnold and worked at AAA for quite a few years, and I was going to go on a trip to Alaska to photograph grizzly bears. And one of the guys that I worked with, Don Anderson, he offered to sell me my first professional camera. So I kind of got into photography by the back door. I wanted to go up there and take wonderful pictures, and so I needed a good camera. So that's how I got into photography.
Okay, and this is a film camera, not a digital.
That was a film camera, yes. That was quite a few years ago.
And before we get into the quilting side of what you did, I'm curious about when did you start to use digital photography?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I don't even remember. I think as soon as it was available, my first camera, digital camera, had, and it's still the one I use, has 6 megapixels. So that should tell you. I think now they're up to 10 or 12 on the new Nikons. So it was one of the first. It's a Nikon D100 is what I use. And I got into it as soon as I felt comfortable, because I take a lot of pictures, or used to take a lot of pictures. And, I took as many as 40 rolls of film when I was on a vacation, and maybe I'd get 12 fantastic pictures out of that. So when you do digital media, you can delete a lot, and you don't waste film.
And you can save a lot of money, it seems.
You can save a lot of money, yes. You have a lot of more control.
What other kind of positive things, what other things do you like about using digital as opposed to film? Well,
the most important thing is I used to photograph the kids at Avery Middle School in their graduation. I did their individual portraits. And if you have film, you have to go to the lab to really manipulate the photos if there's any sort of problem with contrast, brightness, shadows, which I always fought a shadow problem. And when you have digital, then I can stay at home and edit all my own photos.
Do you have a specific program you use, or?
Oh, I use Photoshop. I have from the very beginning, yeah.
And that's what I use. Everybody who's been on the show talks about Photoshop.
Photoshop is fantastic, and it even allows you to take a blurred picture of somebody and with filters sharpen the photo. Mm-hmm. And I considered myself pretty accomplished with Photoshop, but I was always aware that I probably used 5% of the program. Yeah.
What are maybe some, is there anything you don't like about digital that you miss with film, or that you think, that digital doesn't have that film has? Or?
No.
They've really gotten it down pretty good, I think.
I think so. Yeah, the only thing that I feel badly about is that I have some good film cameras. I don't even know what to do with them. They're just in the back of my closet.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about this quilting side of it that you've done with your pictures.
Well, I got into quilters 3-4 years ago, I joined the Independence Hall Quilters of Arnold, which is a very large organization of very talented women. And I really have always liked the art side of things. I made several large quilts, bed quilts, a lot of lap quilts, and Doris Williams taught a class in landscape quilts that are more of a wall hanging or art piece than what we would think of as traditionally a quilt. So I took a couple classes from her. The butterfly that you saw originally was her class, and then like I said, a landscape class. So once I got into the landscape part, I realized that I had so many photos of landscapes all over that I already had an idea of where I wanted to go with my art quilts. Just take my own photos and go from there.
Okay. Are there a lot of other people doing a somewhat similar technique of taking photos and trying to turn them into quilts? Or using them as a reference? Or?
I don't know about the people who are up here locally. I'm sure internationally and all over the United States, there's people that do a much more professional job than I do at it. But I don't know. I don't know how to answer that really.
Okay. Well, I had the privilege of coming to your house and looking at some of the pictures and the quilts, and we filmed some of it, and so we have a little insert here that we can show, and you really talk a lot. It really shows, I think, a lot about the techniques and some of the skills, and so whenever we can, let's go ahead and roll the insert.
This is my studio where I do a lot of my creating. And one process that you might be interested in is fusing. I like to fuse fabric, make my own fabric, and come up with little designs like that. And what I do is I take a piece of fabric, in this case it's just black, and then I take all of my fun fabrics that I have. I collect batiks, which are hand-painted, unusual, from all over the world. And I cut kind of fun shapes. I put a fused, Steam-A-Seam 2 is generally what I use. And I will put some on the wrong side of the fabric. I will peel off the backing, which leaves a kind of a shiny, sticky on the wrong side of the fabric. I will come over and put it on my base fabric or my black fabric, use my iron to iron it down. So it's a layered process, and then I can come up with something quite unusual. And then what I do is I will take a shape such as a heart or a ribbon or whatever I'm trying to go with, and I will come over and lay it down on this fabric. I'll find a place that has some interesting colors, cut out that shape, and then I'm ready to take this and put it on something else. So that's what I do there. This is the sewing side of things. This is where I use my brother's sewing machine. It does have a computer, but the computer really, for this size machine, which is really pretty small, all it's going to do for me is give me these stitches. So there's a variety of decorative stitches that I can pull up. I do like to paint fabric. I took a class a couple years ago, and these are the two things that I did that day. Painted on silk, so you can get some kind of vibrant colors. The teacher actually, not to show any of us up, of course, painted at the same time and then cut all the fabric up and made postcards and actually mailed this to all of her students. This is a quilt that I did, I think about 1.5 years ago, and the process was to make a quilt that looks a bit like a stained glass sculpture. And so what we were told to do is to bring in a photograph that we liked, which I did. Brought in the photograph of a painted lady butterfly on a purple coneflower that I took in my own yard quite a long time ago. And so what the process was is taking this photograph and laying a piece of clear acetate over the top of it, and taking a Sharpie pen and drawing around all the shapes of the design. And with this butterfly, I had to draw all those little intricate colored pieces that would make up the butterfly. And then that piece of acetate was taken to a printer who blew it up into an 18 by 24 piece of like a butcher paper piece with all those black lines on it. So then the process after that is one by one to cut out those little puzzle pieces on that white paper and match it to the colored fabric that you want to make that design. And again, using that Steam-A-Seam 2 on the wrong side of the fabric, you would cut out the shape, peel off the backing of the Steam-A-Seam, and then you would have your tacky glue on the wrong side, lay it where you want it on the background, and then iron it down. So that took several months of work to do, picking the colors to match the butterfly. That was a lot of work, but batiks are really good for that. As you can see, they're kind of unusual colors. So that's what that process was all about. And then once all of the fabric was fused onto the background, then I had to stitch each individual piece, which with the flower was no big deal, but of course with the butterfly, there's a lot of small intricate pieces of fabric there. So all that has to be stitched down. And then after that, the whole piece was quilted, layered with some batting and a backdrop, and quilted. A lot of work. That's a relatively simple way to use digital photography. I took a photograph of my dog, and then I have fabric that is designed to run through your home computer, just a regular inkjet printer. And so I ran it through and cut it out, and then put a border around it and a little background piece, a little darker on the top, a little lighter on the bottom, just to kind of pop it. So I love birds. I looked through my bird book and I saw the oriole, and so I freehand drew a picture of the bird on a piece of white paper and did a similar process to that, where I cut out the individual pieces of black, fused it to black fabric, or fused the black fabric on a background fabric, and then laid it down. And then once I got my bird all designed, I used thread play to do the design on the wings to kind of, make it pop.
Absolutely amazing stuff, I think. It was a real pleasure seeing all those things. And of course, your dog, Katie, is a really cute little dog.
She's a ham.
That's the kind of thing that kind of helps you get influenced and get motivated, right? I mean, to do that kind of art, I think.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I just took some pictures of some kittens, and they were just, it was amazing. It's Susan's kittens, actually.
Oh, okay.
So, a question was brought up about stippling. Can you maybe tell us a little bit more about what stippling is?
Yeah, in the butterfly quilt that you saw with the green background, that is a type of quilting. It's not a pattern like a flower or a feather, a standard quilting pattern, but it's more just free-form sewing. So you have your top piece, you have your batting, and you have whatever you're going to use for your backing, the bottom of it, and you put it on the machine and you put the feed dogs down, and there's a special foot that you use. And then some people put the all the whole sandwich into an embroidery hoop, and then they hold the embroidery hoop and they move around like that all over, and that is what stippling is. I don't use the embroidery hoop, so my hands are just going like this in circles to get that whole thing quilted.
So you try to do it random, but there is a little bit of a pattern there.
You do try and do it random, and if I really look at pieces I've done, I can see where I really got tired and the line was straight for a 1/4 inch. But hopefully not too many people are going to pick it apart like I would pick it apart.
Right. Well, we have some examples here that I'm going to go ahead and hold up, or we can look at this one first. So this is a photograph of white pines, is that right?
Lake Alpine.
Lake Alpine, yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the photo. What motivated you to take the picture?
I was going over the pass. I'm also a fisher person, and I think I was going up really early in the morning, 7:30, to go to Mosquito Lakes and do some fishing. And I just stopped there at the parking lot on the east end of Lake Alpine and got out and just looked back toward that inlet that goes right below the parking area, and looked back toward the island in the main part of the lake, and it was framed by trees. And I think that was when I was still using slide film, and I was using Velvia, which kind of picks up the blues, the lavenders, and really pops those particular colors, whereas a Kodak film is more on a warmer side of the yellows and oranges. So I was asked if I manipulated the colors on that, and no.
It's a really amazing picture.
Thank you. I was very happy with it.
And I love the reflection.
Oh, yeah.
And then we have here a quilted interpretation, or maybe you have a
Yes.
different word for it, or?
No, I wanted to, again, going back to the photography, I have quite a few pictures that I love, and I thought I have certainly a lot of subject matter that I can play with. And on this particular one that I did, I was painting silk at the time. So the entire background, from the blue sky all the way down to the light green grass at the bottom, is hand painted by me using fabric paints. And it's almost a watercolor feel to it. And then I used, green fabric, some rock-colored fabric to make the rocks, to make the land and the edge of the water.
So all this color, like in here, is white. Is that white originally, and then you paint it?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. The blue and the green at the bottom and the water itself on the side here was all painted by me. So yeah, it was a piece of white silk.
It's really amazing. I really enjoy the interpretive side of it.
Yeah, it doesn't match the picture exactly, but it does give it gives it a feeling, and I know what it is. When I look at it, it makes me remember that photograph.
Now, do you help other quilters do this technique in the local? You said you were part of a local group.
No, I haven't. I haven't been asked. Like I said, we do have some pretty amazing teachers, and they know a lot more about quilting and all that than I do. Again, I always want to please myself when I do my art pieces, so I kind of go off and do my own thing. So no, I imagine if they asked, I'd be more than happy to do a class.
What kind of, do you do other kind of traditional quilting, or what other kind of quilting do you do?
Yes, I have, I have a king-size quilt for our bed. I have 3 or 4 quilts for our guest bed, and I have lots and lots of throws and some other wall hangings that are large, 5 feet square, that type of thing. And I'll continue to do that. I still like to do that type of art, but if I'm going to do something artistic or creative, this is the process that I'll probably go for.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the quilting group and the quilting shows that they have up here?
Sure. Independence Hall Quilters is one of the largest quilting organizations in this area. And I can't remember exactly how many members we have, but it's probably 150, maybe more than that. It's quite large. We meet every Monday at Independence Hall off of Blagan Road in Arnold, and it's just a wonderful group of ladies. And we spend the entire day there. A lot of ladies bring their lunch, and we have a meeting, and we have classes that are offered in the classroom, and it's just a wonderful group of women. And we put on a show at Couts Ironstone and Murphy's every year in October, and I want to say it's about a week before Halloween, but don't quote me on that.
What can you say about quilting as an art form, and the creativity that goes into it?
Oh my gosh. You know, it's funny, some people think of quilting as just taking 3 or 4 yards of perfectly good fabric, ripping them apart and re-sewing them into making another perfectly good piece of fabric. And that is it basically, except that the patterns are so numerous, and you know, there's so many different types of quilts. There's the traditional, the artistic, the useful. There's some that you can take your husband's old t-shirts. So let's say he has one of the Grand Canyon, he went to New York, whatever, wherever he's been, and you can cut those t-shirts up and you can make a quilt top out of that. And of course, think of how comfortable that would be, all that soft jersey. People take dresses and shirts of their grandkids that they've outgrown, that are some of their favorite outfits that you couldn't get them out of when they were little, and you can cut that apart and make a quilt that's very personable for that kid.
What about being multidisciplinary, like being able to, how do you think that being the skills that you take for photography help translate to the skills that you take for quilting?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I don't really know. You know, you have to work with light and color and shapes, and you have to make the quilt interesting, like the landscape that you had held up before. I framed the picture with a tree that was on the side and the leaves and branches that come over, which is the same. When you take a picture, you want to frame it sometimes, look through a tree or look through an opening, or have wildflowers at the very front and the bridge of New Melones in the background or whatever. So your quilt has to have interest like that too. That's about the best I can come up with.
What kind of projects are you working on right now, or are you maybe planning on working on? Can you give us a little hint about it?
You know, it's funny. In the summer, I kind of take time off from my art. As soon as the days get shorter and it starts getting colder and I'm spending more time inside, the creative juices start flowing, and I can hardly wait to get down to my quilt room. And there'll be a few projects that I have my eye on. I bought a pattern from a friend that uses what they call paper piecing. And it's very intricate pieces of fabric that you put together, and it's a small Christmas wall hanging. So I will be doing that. I'm probably also going to make a quilt to donate for the soldiers. I did a square, as many of our quilters did several months ago. We did stars in red, white, and blue, and those were sent off, and I can't remember the organization, and they wanted at least 100 squares. And I know we sent 60 just from our guild, or 100 squares was going to make one quilt, and they got these squares from all over the United States, and we were to sign each square that we did and date it, and so some lucky soldiers down the road will be getting these quilts. And I want to do one of those myself. I want to do the whole thing. All the squares will be mine. So that's a project I'm thinking about.
That's great. How important is doing this art for you? Like, what does it mean to you to be creative in this way? Come up with new ways of doing things?
Well, you know, ever since I was a young person in Laguna Beach, I have been an artist, crafts person. I don't think there's ever been a time in my life when I haven't been making something, creating something. So who knows? I mean, this process may be what I'm interested in now, and see me in 10 years and we'll see what I'm into then. I've made jewelry. I still make a little jewelry. And I love to weave, love to work with fabric. I knit. So, you know, being creative is just being creative. It doesn't matter really what medium that you're working with. This is just what I'm working with now. And I love to paint, so that I'm very proud of that picture too because of having painted the background. I am going to be taking a week-long seminar in Asilomar next June, and I'm going to be taking it from a teacher whose name has slipped my brain. No, I won't be able to catch that. Anyway, she's also going to be having us paint our backgrounds and then go from there. And she has asked us to bring pictures. So it'll be something else that I've taken a photograph of and that I will be making a quilt out of. So.
What other kinds of, is there any other kind of art projects you do other than quilting and photography?
Well, the necklaces, jewelry, and I made earrings. One of the ladies at IHQ, actually, I think it was she was our boutique chairperson. She was somewhere and somebody was wearing a necklace that had bobbins, had 5 bobbins, all with different colored thread on the bobbins. She saw this necklace and she came to me and said, do you think you could do something similar? And I said, sure, that's right up my alley. So at our quilt fair this year in the boutique, we will have, I think, 20 or so of those necklaces, all one of a kind with bobbins on them of colored thread.
You're a very creative person, I think.
Oh, I like to be creative.
Well, we don't have too much time left. Maybe you could tell us, we brought up the website during the insert, but maybe you could tell us the website again if people want to get a hold of you. And
Yeah, just Google Chris Bernasconi and it will come right up. At least I hope it will come right up. It does when I look for it.
And people can see some of the work you've done.
Yeah, I have, again, I still do photography. I still take pictures of families. It's a word of mouth. I don't really advertise for that, but I've been doing that for a long time. So there are several pictures of families that I photographed. There's a section of animals that I photographed all over Alaska. I think I put my turkey pictures on there, and then of course there are pictures of most of my quilts.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Chris, for joining us
Sure.
today. And thank you for watching Art in the Digital World. Have a great day.